So hi everyone, welcome to this SDG webinar. So as you know, it is one of the 25 webinars we are organizing as ISTO in the E-Week of Fair and Sustainable Tourism for All. So this is actually a partnership with Route 2030 and Via Tourism Academy. So these are two Belgian organizations, and we have Sarah and Jan from Route 2030, and we have Annela from Via Tourism Academy. So welcome to them, and I will actually let them speak right away because they are the ones who know more. Thank you.
Thank you, Marine. First, I would like to introduce ourselves and also welcome you. And I would like to hand over to Hannelore to introduce herself and Via Tourism Academy.
Yes, thank you, Jan. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to some. I've seen here someone from Chile as well. I'm Hannelore from Via Tourism Academy. We're a small nonprofit, a center of expertise in sustainable tourism and social entrepreneurship. And we have this partnership today, but it will be mostly Jan and Sarah talking. But we will do this trajectory together about the SDGs for ISTO members in the coming months. So that's why we're in this together. But today it will be mostly by Route 2030. Via is part of a bigger worldwide network of profit and non-profit organizations, a tour operator, Joker, 17 social enterprises around the world, Via cafes, and us as a nonprofit. And I think today what we will do, it fits perfectly in the method that we always use in all our trainings, consultancies, and research, which is first we challenge you a little bit, then we inspire you with good practice cases, we engage you, we make an action plan, we do exercises, which I'm sure we will do today as well, and we communicated about it, we tell stories, and we spread the word. So that's what I think we will get out of it today, and happy to be here with everyone.
Thank you, Hannelore. Let's introduce Route 2030 a little bit more. Now I'll give the floor to Sarah.
Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Sarah from Route 2030, and we are an agency specialized in sustainability consultancy and change management. And what we try to do is take or make organizations future-proof, Direction 2030, and guide them with the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework. I would like to introduce also our 5 steps we always use. And the first one is insight, the next one is dynamics, and these 2 steps are the steps we are going to elaborate today. So these are the steps where you will start with, and which is the best way to start a trajectory in sustainability integration in your organization. The other steps, course, impact story, will be the subjects in the next webinars. So today, the agenda is first, as Hannelore said, inspiration. What are the challenges now with COVID? What is the link between COVID and sustainable development? Next, we will elaborate on, okay, what's in for you? Why is it important for you? And how can you innovate sustainably? We will do some exercises in between, but we'll explain that later. And if there are questions during the session, please ask them via the chat. Maybe we can already try it once. So maybe everyone can, via chats, explain where, say his nationality or where he's located at this moment, just as a test. And so we know from where everybody is following this webinar. I see Morocco, Russia, France, Chile, Mexico, England. So I think it works. Perfect. Brussels, Madrid, So then I'll give the floor back to Jan for the first part, COVID-19 and sustainable development.
Thank you, Sarah. COVID-19 sustainable development. Well, also welcome from my side. Of course, COVID-19 is not new for everyone. It's a crisis that all of us has to do with worldwide. And what it has to do with sustainable development. In this intro, we would like to show you the link, but also the differences between the two topics and see how we can use also a crisis like Corona in the future developments of sustainable development, a sustainable strategy, and how to change also behaviors and organizations towards this. As you know, the world is temporarily closed. As you could also see it from a link from the worldwide outbreak of COVID-19 has brought the world to a standstill, and tourism has been one of the worst affected of all major economic sectors. So how can we deal with this? We have new habits. We quickly had to change our way of organizations, how we deal with situations in personal life, but also in our professional lives. So as a start, I just wanted to frame how COVID-19 is quite similar than other crises that we deal with in these times. Actually, COVID-19 is a pandemic which is quite similar as a climate risk in that way that they both represent physical shocks, which then translate into a range of socioeconomic effects. A financial crisis, instead, is driven by human sentiment and confidence. So that's the main difference. When you also look at the last financial crisis in 2008, 2007-8, it was a total different way of crisis. Now we're all in a lockdown. We have to work from home. We are restricted by a lot of things, which represent actually physical shocks and will have a lot of socioeconomic effects. Now, as you also know, the famous flatten the curve, which is also linked with Corona crisis versus the climate crisis. On the left, you see the Corona crisis, which means that without protective measures, we will exceed the healthcare system capacity. So we need protective measures. We need that to flatten the curve and to make it more resilient. On the right side, you see actually a quite similar curve, which shows that without climate protective measures, we will exceed the global temperature of 2 degrees. So we need actually climate protective measures to become also more resilient in this way. Here you see a quite similar way of how Corona and climate crisis looks like each other. Now, there are also differences, of course, and we call that the tragedy of the horizon. What does it mean? Corona crisis is threatening. It's direct and perceptible. What it means is, as I showed you in the first slide, the world is temporarily closed. It's quite direct. We saw it coming from China. Immediately it was in Italy and then spread over all over the world. It was quite direct. We were in lockdown. We needed to adapt. We needed to change our behavior and deal with uncertain circumstances. Climate crisis instead is gradual, it's cumulative, and it's connected. On the right side, you see 2 people working in a hospital. I'll be happy when this is over. But of course, this climate change or this climate crisis is still coming. So it will be a crisis with even more trouble. The difference is we don't see it. And that's the tragedy of the horizon. We don't experience right now the direct effects as we experience it from Corona crisis. So that's the main difference between these 2 crises. Why do I tell you this? These are only 2 of many risks worldwide. Here you can see a risk outlook, we call it, from the World Economic Forum in 2020. World Economic Forum every year comes together in Davos, and they make a report on the most important risks worldwide. You see here that the green dots are becoming more and more in the front than, for example, economic or geopolitical or societal risks. Here, you don't see the risk of a pandemic. And actually, this is made in the beginning of the year, which in China already the pandemic was very huge. So this is also an outlook. It's a scenario that they are thinking of. What does it mean, and which risks might be dangerous for the world? Of course, when, as I said, extreme weather, climate action failure, natural disaster, biodiversity loss, etc., are all disasters, risks that are becoming more and more important. In this risk landscape, as we call it then, we have to look at crises that are likely to happen. You see here, for example, infectious disease at the left upper corner. You see this as a link with extreme weather, food crisis, water crisis, critical infrastructure failure, etc., etc. So it's all interlinked with each other. And this is what we call, it's a whole system. It's a whole way of looking at the different dots and try to connect these dots. This requires, of course, resilience in a lot of terms, in terms of social risks, public health, infrastructure, supply chains, etc. So with this, I wanted to say we have that corona crisis. Everyone is in lockdown now. The world is changing and will be changed after this crisis. But a lot of other risks, like corona, like climate change, is coming our way. So how do we prepare ourselves? How do we change ourselves, our organization, to be prepared, to be more resilient towards these crises, these risks? One way is to deal with the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's actually an important question. You're all believers in sustainability. That's why you're here in this webinar. But what's in it for me? And how can I use the Sustainable Development Goals to be more resilient, to look at corona crisis or other crises and adapt my organizations to become future-proofed, let's say. What's in it for me? Well, to start with the very beginning, what do we want? Or also, what do we need? We need food, we need shelter, a roof above our head, we need transportation to go from one place to another. And what do we need for that? We need industry, we need transport services, we need agriculture, we need services, etc. for our needs. Now, if I ask you the question, what is then our impact? It's a difficult question. It's not that you can answer that with just one word. We are with more people all over the world. We want more food, we want more stuff. And this means we have less resources, so more unsustainability. Okay, good. I know what I need. I know what resources I have to do to get to that. But what are the consequences? What are the consequences of our impact to the planet? Well, you see here an image. It's a quite famous image. On the left, you see the world temperature in 1989, where you see some blue, some yellow, and then actually a couple of years later, a lot of red, which means that the difference in temperature is moving a lot. We also expect a lot of extremes in that format. Lower, you see actually a map of Italy. You might also seen this before, but you see also a difference in the temperature of industry. Above, you see there Milan as a city. And due to Corona, only in a couple of weeks, months and weeks, this changed a lot. What means that we have an impact. As a human population, we have an impact on the world, on the planet, on the resources, because we need stuff, we want stuff, we use resources. And the way we deal with industry and we move forward to use those stuff and to create stuff, this creates impact. Now, it creates impacts on a lot of levels. We can say, okay, why is it all a problem? And then we come to a whole image. When it comes to, for example, sustainable tourism, you can link it not only towards climate and planet topics, such as biodiversity loss and climate change, etc., but also a lot of social risks. It's about infrastructure, it's about innovation, it's about how you deal with risks. It's about the connection between people you see in other countries who are in poverty, who have hunger. So it's when it comes to sustainability, there are a lot of links to know. Now, what is the solution? I'll just give the word to Sarah on this.
Yeah, so we got a lot of insights of Jan, but now the question is, sustainability, it's a lot of things, but what is it and how am I going to define it for my organization? For this, I'll share a Miro board. I'll send the link via the chat and I'll show you how we are going to use it. If you click on the link, a board will open. And I'll share my screen so you can see mine. What you will see is the website miro.com, and there you will see in the middle of a mind map, what is sustainable development? My question to you is, and there are no wrong answers, what is sustainability or sustainable development according to you? You can fill in some words, some thoughts. Everything is good. You can type something if you press on the type something, and then you can write something. You'll see what I'm writing here. If you want more balloons, you can press on the plus sign. So please write down your thoughts. There are no wrong answers. And yeah, the question is, what is sustainable development according to you or according to your organization? We'll give you 4 minutes, something like that. Last minute, so finish your your text. Okay, so what do I see? I see minimalizing the negative effects of tourism. I think that's a very good one. Circular use of goods, also good. Use resources efficiently. I see the same one over here. I can put them together. Climate action, so take action, indeed. What else? Worrying about resources, economics, social aspects, and nature. It's also a good definition. And here it's difficult to read. Develop projects that consider that resources of our planet will finish someday. Also nice. Human resources, also a good one. Technology and innovation is also an aspect. Optimization, also true. Social, environmental, and economic, at least. So what we see is it has a lot of aspects. Everything that is written down is, of course, an aspect of sustainable development, but how are we going to define it? Well, the most accepted and most used definition is the one of Brundtland. I will, yeah, the PowerPoint, okay, is the one of Brundtland, and it says that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So this is a definition from the exercise we just did, you can see some things coming back, but it's still vague and it's not really actionable. So another concept that was introduced was the triple bottom line, or the 3 Ps. I think you might heard of it. It are actually, the 3 Ps are people, planet, and profit. And they are, a lot of times they're like there are circles within the middle. There is like a harmonization, a place where the 3 circles are combined, and that's the place where you want to be as an organization. But you can also see it as the figure on the right side, where actually planet is your fundament, and within this fundament, people and profit have to thrive. So that actually you can pursue profit, that's necessary, of course, but you have to do this within the boundaries of people and within the boundaries of our planet. There was a basic framework that helped a lot of organizations to make this very broad definition of sustainable development a little bit more concrete and actionable. And a lot of organizations used this this triple bottom line for corporate social responsibility, and the focus was mainly on doing no harm and really on sustainability, on responsibility, and operate in the middle of the 3 circles you just saw. But sustainable development wants to go a step further and more in the figure on the right side that you'll see now. The idea of that the circles have to go into each other. And there is also 2 extra P's that the United Nations added in 2015. The first one is peace, because people can only thrive if the condition of peace is met. That's the first one. And the second new P is partnership, because you cannot have sustainable development if we're not working all together. We need corporates, but also governments, we need organization, profit, non-profit, we need everyone, schools, etc. So these 5 Ps are the backbone of Agenda 2030. And you already heard the word a lot, Sustainable Development Goals, but this is actually the backbone of these 17 goals. Because for every goal the United Nations developed, there is a P that corresponds with it. For example, the first layer, so our fundament, our planetary boundaries, we have 5 Sustainable Development Goals. The first one is clean water and sanitation. The second one is responsible production and consumption. The third one is climate action. And the fourth one is life below water. And the last one is life on land. So this is the first dimension of the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030. The second level was a peace level, and that's about peace, justice, strong institutions. It's also about corruption, good governance, etc. The people dimension then is about no poverty, no hunger, good health and well-being, education and gender equality. These are themes that are not new to a sustainability agenda. The previous one, the Millennial Development Goals, also had kind of these themes. The prosperity level, so this is the level that really is speaks also to the corporates, etc. It's about clean energy. It's about economic growth and decent work. It's about infrastructure and innovation, inequalities, and smart and sustainable cities. And the last one, it's the cherry on the cake, is the partnerships. As I mentioned, we need everyone to work together on these goals. So here, these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The aim is to achieve them in 2030. It was one of the biggest stakeholder consultations ever in history because NGOs, corporates were asked what they thought that would be the most important challenges for the future. And so this is the plan for action for sustainable development. And the question of today is, are the SDGs the solution for a resilient society? And therefore, I would like to launch a poll. Marine will help me with that. To what extent is your organization aware of the Sustainable Development Goals? The first answer is not at all. Second one, just a little bit. Third one, good or very good. Where is your organization now? Some minutes to answer the poll. I think maybe everyone has voted or not yet, Marine?
Not yet. We have 18 people out of 35, so half of the people. Let's wait a little bit more. We're still missing 15 people. Please vote.
Maybe we can already have a look at the results.
Yes, so we have, at the moment, we have 41% of the people who've said very good, 36% good, 18% a little bit, and 5% not at all.
Okay.
So I'll wait another 5-6 seconds and then I'll close it. Yes, so I will share results. Can everybody see the results?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Okay. It's good to see that a lot of you are quite familiar already with the Sustainable Development Goals. Actually, the majority of people joining this webinar, which is good. So this will help to answer the question, are the SDGs a solution for a resilient society? Because of course, the first step is to know the SDGs, to get to know them. The 17 goals, these 169 targets, and all the indicators behind them. And what does it mean for you? What can you do with it as an organization in the travel industry? Now, as I said also in the beginning, we have Corona. We have one of the crises, like many will follow, the climate crisis and also other challenges ahead. And one scenario when we look at the Sustainable Development Goals is that these crises has a negative effects on the SDGs. That there will be a delay in the progress of the agenda. Also said in this scenario is that the SDGs are not helpful in the response during a pandemic. You see that a lot of articles come around which says that, for example, SDG 17 fails. There is no partnership, no global partnership to get this solutions for example, the Corona crisis. We need an SDG 18, let's say, for global health. We're not enough with SDG 3 on good health and well-being. So there are a lot of scenarios which is quite pessimistic, which are actually quite negative regarding the SDGs. Fortunately, there are also other questions raised, which look at, are these crises, or is the Corona crisis an opportunity to rethink the system and resume its path to the 17 SDGs with more determination? Look at the European Green Deal, which there are topics which have a delay, but also new opportunities arise. There are a lot of movements coming around, organizational movements in sectors, political movements, etc., to look at this crisis as an opportunity. And if we look further at this, we've seen a lot of new things happening the last 2, 3, 4 months. For example, when it comes to innovation, and I saw it also, innovation as an important topic or word defining sustainable development. The Microsoft CEO says we have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in only 2 months. Here you see the Apple computer in '76 linked with all the new features in 2020. But in the last 2 months, a lot of organizations made a huge digital revolution. A revolution that was not expected in several ways. So this Corona crisis also made new opportunities. Another one, a very interesting research from True Value, said that in the left figure, you see that the last 10 years, from 2009 till 2019, investors look at the importance of greenhouse gas emissions, labor practices, business ethics, and then some other topics regarding to how organizations need to deal with sustainable development topics. Now, only the last couple of months, also since Corona crisis, there are a lot of other categories linked with sustainable development. Look at employee health and safety. Look at product quality and safety, access and affordability, also labor practices, supply chain management, a very important one. So you see that due to this crisis, we have another way of dealing with things. We think about things differently. We look at new opportunities and new important facts and figures. And this brings us to scenario 2. Instead of the pessimistic scenario 1, we want to build back better. This means that a Corona crisis leads to a holistic, a systemic vision to offer sustainable and long-term solutions. If you link it with the SDGs, or the 5 Ps, as Sarah mentioned, we look at resilience in 5 pathways. Partnership, shared resilience. Which partnerships can make you more resilient? The partnerships that you have now with your organization, are they resilient, or are they future-proof to look at these crises? When it comes to people, it's very important to look at human resilience. Which actions promote, propose, perception, positive well-being, health, job satisfaction, etc. Then secure and honest resilience, linked with peace. How to guarantee privacy, but also act ethically. Prosperity, smart resilience. How to dynamically design your organization to create positive value. And then planet, ecological resilience. What are your main resources? Do you experience any problems in the supply chain due to Corona, which can also be linked with the partners, the suppliers that you have? So this brings us to scenario 2, building back better, and how can you use the SDGs as a compass, as a critical framework to look at your goals, your strategy, your vision, your mission towards the future. And this is very important. This is what we are going to deal with in the rest of the webinar. Now, to link a little bit to the intro, of course, it's nice to say we're going for scenario 2. We're going for one systemic, holistic vision about sustainable development. But how to achieve that? How to achieve a systemic vision? Well, it's important that you look at systems thinking, scenario thinking, and risk thinking. Like I said in the beginning, it's all about connecting the dots. When it comes to crises and also the effect of Corona in your sector, in the tourism industry, it means a lot of challenges now, but also in the coming years. So it's important to start systems thinking, to look at several scenarios, to look at, okay, we have these challenges, but how can I create opportunities with these challenges? Where is my biggest impact? How can I make some positive impact here and there? How can I design new services, new products for my clients who will also have a different mindset? How can I deal with risks? And how can I see the whole system coming together? Of course, I understand these are difficult questions, and it's not that it's answered right away. And this needs exercise. So that's why we would like to introduce you to a very easy going exercise. Easy going, I mean, it's a good way to start systems thinking. And we do it by the iceberg. It's a tool for guiding systemic thinking, where you see actually 4 levels of the iceberg. What you see above the sea level is the event. But beneath the sea level, the iceberg is way bigger. So we need to look at the underlying patterns, structures, models that are under the sea level. And this is what we call the systemic iceberg. It's a very useful exercise to react and to look at these crises, to start scenario thinking, to create a critical mindset and a systemic mindset for future possibilities. Let's give it a try and look at what does tourism in 2020 means. In just a few seconds, we're going to do the exercise on the interactive board again, but I'll just explain you what we will do. So we can start with an event. Let's say, for example, Corona, or the climate crisis, or another event that occurs. You write it on the top of the iceberg, and then you work your way down through the patterns, underlying systems, mental models, adding as much and many things as you can think of. Now you're here in this webinar alone, but you can do it also with a working group within your organization. Just gather a few people around the table and look at this iceberg and try to work on this. It can also be useful to move up and down between levels. You don't have to look at every level of the iceberg itself. And this is actually a way of starting to think about it. Now, maybe, Sarah, it's useful that you just show you an example. I will stop sharing.
So this is again a Miro board, and you will see here the iceberg. And for example, we'll give you some time later to take a post-it here on the left side. You can choose a color and write down some events that are striking you. It can be COVID-19, for example, climate strikes. And then you go deeper, like what trends have been there over time. For example, over-tourism or mass tourism, but also ecotourism. What are the underlying structures of ecotourism? Maybe customers are more aware of their travel footprint. What can be in the lowest level, an assumption belief? Maybe people, they think they have to go to every hotspot. They have to go to see the Eiffel Tower in Paris and to see Venice. Maybe that's an underlying assumption that they have to go to some hotspots. So these are some examples of how you can fill in the iceberg, but really it is a brainstorm exercise. So again, no wrong answers. It's just to broaden your vision and to see the bigger system behind some events that maybe look small but aren't. So I'll share again the link of the board in the chat, but I can't find it right now. I'll stop share. Voila. Now you have the link to the board, and you can grab a post-it and write down some ideas. If you get crazy of all the cursors of all the guests you see, you can press the button, show collaborators cursor, and then you only see your cursor and not the others. So we'll give you some time for that, maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and after that we'll do a small break, like that. Okay, see you then in 15 minutes for filling in some ideas on the iceberg and have a short break. See you at 4:05.
Good. Welcome again, everyone. In the meanwhile, some people are still doing the exercise on the systemic iceberg. As you can see, we now have a beautiful colored iceberg with a lot of post-its, which is very nice to see. I'm very happy that you all had quite a very significant good input for this. We're not going to detail right now. As I said, this is a first brainstorm exercise on systems thinking. But just to have a quick overview on the events, for example, you see that, oh, someone is moving the whole iceberg. Yep, we're back again on track. Terror attacks, hate crimes, but also big health, economic crisis, racist violence, of course, a hot topic these days as well. Misinformation of the media, etc. So these are really the events, the events that you could see above the sea level, which are really in the image that you could see. The underlying patterns, it's more difficult to see that. And you see that one of the attendees here made a beautiful construction, a line from big health and economic crisis worldwide to the underlying pattern, tourism popularization, going to massive tourism, at the same time demand for sustainable tourism. Tourism is for all, but how to make it sustainable. Look for new tourism, more personal, look for new models, cultural roots, and then we're going to the underlying structures, local partners, cultural heritage, etc. Other patterns that were written down was sustainable tourism next to ecotourism, overbuilding in cities like Dubai. So indeed, more and more people on the planet, but also more and more buildings. How to create sustainable cities, smart cities. But also there I see not equal pay, superior behavior of white people, tourism based on cultural interchange. Some underlying structures coming from movies, documentaries, influencers, indeed. Also personally affected by climate change disasters. Look at people in, for example, Australia with the fires. And then the very bottom of the iceberg, the mental models. And this might be the most difficult part. What assumptions, beliefs, and values do people hold about the system? Coming from, indeed, education, awareness, comfort, but also, indeed, comfort should be sustainable. Sustainability is expensive or is not expensive. What is the assumption? Trust. Clients have little time available, not so much money, and want to make the most of it. So there are a lot of assumptions indeed about the whole iceberg and how to look at this. And if we go back to the slides, you see actually what we wanted to do with this exercise and what you can also do after this webinar is looking at several questions. Does the model, the iceberg model that you had before you, help broaden your perspective? If so, how might this new perspective be helpful? And what issues that have frustrated you might be interesting to analyze with the iceberg model? It's actually a way to open your mindset, like I said, to trying to connecting the dots, to look at systems thinking, critical thinking, risk thinking, scenario thinking. And this is a very, very first step to start with. How can I change my organization? How can I change my behavior? And be future-proofed towards these crises, like, for example, Corona. Now, in the second part, we want to deep dive a little bit more in practical stuff. We looked at the crises, we looked at the SDGs, sustainable development. What does it mean? What does it mean for you? And how can we cope with scenario 2 to building back better? Also looking at systems thinking. Now, as a first step, Sarah will introduce you the step of creating insight.
So yeah, the very first step is create insight, and there are 3 building blocks of this first step that I want to go through with you. The first step is to map what you're already doing. A lot of organizations don't know what they're already doing, because it's sustainability. It's not the responsibility of one person, of one sustainability manager. It's the responsibility of a whole organization, like the HR manager, the procurement department, the operation department. They all have their sustainability issues and challenges. And sometimes it's difficult to get an overview of what are we doing. Maybe there are some ad hoc actions in some departments that you don't know. So that's why the first step is map what you're already doing. The second one is define your impacts and priorities. And the third one is develop your vision and mission, or refine it. So this is really the core of sustainability, the why. Why do we want to be sustainable? What is your purpose? Why does your organization exist? Next slide, please. This is an example of the first step that I mentioned, like SDG mapping. So what you can do is use the Sustainable Development Goals to map all the actions that your organization is already undertaking. Why use the SDGs? Because then you have a holistic view on what sustainability can mean. If you don't use the SDGs, maybe you can forget that, for instance, sustainable cities, smart cities, etc., that these things are also a part of sustainability. So the holistic SDGs can be a tool to have a very broad view on everything concerning sustainability. And it is really important to do this not alone, not one person, but you do this in a group, a representative group of your organization, and really get together and start mapping what you're already doing. Next slide, please. The second step then is, okay, this is what we do today, but where is our impact? Where is our impact the biggest? For example, a bank can do a lot on paper use, less paper, more digital. But is that really the action with the most impact for a bank? Maybe a bank should focus on responsible investing and responsible funds. So in this exercise, you are really going to look at the things where I'm going to focus my energy. Where do we have most impact? And how do you know where you have the most impact and where the most opportunities lie? You can ask this to your stakeholders, so also not just one person, but your internal and external stakeholders, and ask them, what do you think we have to focus on as an organization? This is important. Why? Because if there is support of your internal and external stakeholders, you will have a big rate of success. Because when you're going to do something that nobody is waiting for, there will be it will have a lot of impact. So that is the second exercise you can do. What you see here is a matrix, an SDG matrix, as we call it, and it actually shows on the right hand side your SDG priorities. These are the SDGs where you have most impact now, impact today, and where you see the most opportunities in the future. So these two questions, where do we have impact now and where do we see opportunities in the future, are questions you have to ask yourself, your internal stakeholders and your external stakeholders. I think we have another example, and I think Hannelore maybe can explain this a little more.
Yes, I've selected a few examples from the travel industry internationally as well as from Belgium, since we have an international audience. We'll talk a bit about Belgian Belgian examples as well. But this is from Intrepid, and it's the biggest adventure travel company worldwide, based in Australia, and they are really, if we're in this sector of travel, of adventure travel, they really have a pioneering role. And I took this from their annual report of 2019. So they have done an SDG mapping, as you say, looking at what are the things that they are already doing and where they can create a lot of impact, and put it here. You can't really read it here, but you can read more about it on their website as well. So you see here that they've done a lot of things with gender equality, doubling the amount of female guides worldwide, for example. And these are things, if you look at the matrix, where they can have a big impact because they're a big company, and kind of roll this out worldwide, to have these really big numbers of female guides, for example. And also something that's important to them is life on land and animal welfare, where they also really have been pioneering in the sector. So this is an example of a big company in the travel industry that did this kind of impact mapping.
Thank you, Anna-Laura.
So after after you mapped what you're already doing on sustainability, and after you have defined where you have the most impact and where the opportunities lie, it is important to refine refine your mission and vision towards your findings. So as you saw before, the circles, the why, the what, the how, these are the circles of Simon Sinek, and he says, like, you as an organization, you have to know why you exist. And this relates also to what is your organizational culture now, and what values are formal, the formal values, and which values are informal. They have their own life, but they are not really structured. So when you do previous exercises, you have to look at your mission and try to incorporate the sustainability topics you found that have the most impact on you, you have the most impact on, and where your opportunities lie. And then you will have a mission that really reflects why your organization exists. So I'll show some examples. We found out of the ISTO network, for example, La Rosa dei Quattro Venti. There is a really clear why in this mission, and also Passar is also another good example. I think Hannelore also had an example on the next slide.
Yes, indeed. This is an example from Belgium called the Botel. As you see, it's a hotel on a boat, and they have a lot of different things. You can also rent electric boats. There's a restaurant, there's a cafe, and they really work with the SDGs as well. They also have done an SDG mapping, and they just really want to put the locality first, and put the local partnerships and suppliers and the community first, so everyone can flourish from the tourism there.
Other great examples outside the tourism sector are like Patagonia. We're in business to save our home planet. That's a very clear why. And they also state that developing this mission is a great pathway to action, and it's also really important, as I mentioned, to get your organization culture in the direction you want to go. On the next slide, I have a last example. Tony Chocolonis is a chocolate fabric, and the mission is, or the why is, together we'll make chocolate 100% slave-free. So I hope this inspires you. And the poll or the question we want to raise now is, does the why of your organization come up in its mission? I don't know if Marine can launch the poll.
Yes, actually, I have a little technical problem with this one. Sorry about it.
No problem. Is it going to work, or
keep going, and I'll fix it, and we can maybe go back to it in about 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks. In the meanwhile, also, if you have any questions regarding the first step, where we talked about creating insights and really the why, where we showed you some examples, feel free to share your questions or feedback or insights in the chat, and we'll deal with them after this part. An important second step is creating dynamics. Actually, the how in the circle, the process. When we talk about the process, we look at what are the actions you will take to realize the why, and how will you act. This is very important. As for the process, you will need a sustainability culture. Sarah already explained that a vision and a mission helps you with having the right people in the right direction. But how will you shape this? With a vision and a mission, that's one good step, creating insight. But change a culture is quite difficult. As you know, the famous line, organizational culture eats strategy for breakfast and lunch. Now, it's a big challenge. What you see here is an amount of change models that exist in literature and articles. How can you change an organization? And we want to look at one specific model that might help you as well to change the culture a little bit and to look at what are my priorities, my focus areas to go through. The model from Kemp is actually an integrated model for an analysis of problems in organizations. You see here 3 viewpoints: technical viewpoint, power influence, and the cultural viewpoint, on 3 other levels: policy, internal organization, staff, and personal, with 9 focus areas coming from strategy, goals, methods, etc., towards number 9, attitude, commitment, etc. These 9 focus areas have a role to play in your culture, in your organizational culture. You can also link it to the why, how, what, which is number 7, 8, 9 are more related to the why. Really the insights, the how is more the process, where stakeholders are important, where we come a little bit after this. And then the what, the strategy, the goals that you set, the tasks, the actions, the skills that you need, etc. Now, if we would do a research with, let's say, 500 organizations in the tourism industry or in any other industry, we would say, okay, we have a problem. We have a problem in our culture, and we need to tackle these problems. The management of an organization would say, okay, the problem or the core of the problem is related to attitude, commitment, ownership, number 9. When we say the same question, and the other people in the organization, employees, will answer this question and say, like, okay, no, the biggest problem here is in number 1, the vision, the strategy, the goals, etc. And if we ask the same question to middle management, they will answer it, no, the main problem will be in number 5 and 6, decision-taking, authority, autonomy, responsibility. So you see that if we do research in 500 organizations, there is difference in answers between employees of an organization and then the management, for example. Now, to change an organization, we can do it with fast factors and slow factors. Sometimes when you look at sustainability, sustainable development actions, there are the low-hanging fruits and then the more ambitious goals. When you look at this matrix, the fast factors are strategy, goals, methods, structure, tasks, expertise, and skills, etc. The slow factors are decision-making, autonomy, cooperation, attitude, commitment, etc. Now, the slow factors are, of course, necessary. These are also linked in green. You need a good basis to reach out for a long-term vision, a long-term strategy on this. We'll have a closer look at 4 and 7, especially 4, where we look at the policy level, power and influence. We'll talk about the process and the importance of stakeholder engagement in this whole story about sustainable development. Why do we do that? It's actually very important to create dynamics and participation with your stakeholders. And the first step here is to define who your stakeholders are. Interact with them by asking their opinion, and then define together your priorities. As mentioned in the first part, creating insight and the why. That's good if you do some if you do some SDG mapping, if you look at your vision and mission, but try to interact with your stakeholders. Only this way you will create a sustainability culture, and you will move forward with the fast and the slow factors. This first step, defining your stakeholders, you can do that in several ways. This is one example. We call it the power interest matrix. And some of you already did this exercise before, where you actually map all the stakeholders coming from suppliers, clients, maybe also government, partner organizations, employees, etc. So we call it internal and external stakeholders. You map them in this power interest matrix, where you look at which of these stakeholders have the biggest power towards my organization and who have the greatest interest in my organization. These are called the key stakeholders. You have to manage them very closely. And closely, we mean try to participate, go into dialogue with them. They are very helpful in defining your vision, mission, change also your organization, look at possibilities to create new opportunities and to deal with challenges. People are stakeholders who have great power but less interest in your organization. It's important to keep them satisfied. Less power but greater interest, keep them informed. And less power, less interest, but still a stakeholder, monitor. Minimum effort, but still monitor them. So this is a very important step when you create dynamics in the process, the how of the whole way. Now, when you have your stakeholders mapped, it's of course important to go into dialogue with them. You can do that in several ways, by launching a survey, doing some focus groups, call them once in a while, but also invite them in a workshop and define yourself which sustainability themes are the most important for you, for your organizations, but also for your stakeholders. You can do the same with the SDGs. Which SDGs are the most important for your organization? You see on the right side a materiality matrix. What do we mean with materiality? The things that matter for you, importance for your organization, but also the things that matter are important for your stakeholders. The right side corner, you see in this example, for example, that the stakeholders and you, your management, your employees, chose SDG 3, 4, and 1 as key SDGs. So these are the SDGs that are important for your stakeholders and are important for you. You can link this also with the exercise that we showed you in the first step with the impact opportunities. which SDGs have the biggest impact on your organization now and also in the future? Which opportunities do they have? This way you create dynamics. This way you create dialogue with your stakeholders, which is very important also in a long-term relationship towards your stakeholders and towards your long-term strategy when it comes to sustainability. Now, here also we have a question for you, just to have a mapping. Did your organization map out its stakeholders? Not yet. Yes, we have mapped them. Yes, we have mapped them and we regularly go into dialogue with them. Yes, we have mapped them and we work together on sustainability topics. And we accept your votes right now.
Yes, we have about 55% of people who voted. We are going to wait a little bit more to give time to people. But I can already say that the first answer is not yet.
Maybe have a few more seconds and then we can share the results so far.
Yes.
Indeed, Marine said it already, 52% said not yet. And then we have 9%, yes, we mapped them and we work together on sustainability topics.
Maybe we can also, if it works now, have a look at the previous question about purpose or the why in the organizational mission, if it works now.
Yes.
To what extent does the purpose of your organization appear in your organization's mission? There is no attention for it. There is some attention for it. The purpose is stated clear in our organization's mission. And the last one, it is 100% clear for everyone who works in my organization what the purpose is.
It is tighter than for the other questions. Yeah, we have about 60% of the people who voted now. We're missing a few. I'll wait another 20, 25 seconds and then I'll close it.
So only, yeah, it's spread. There is some attention for it. It's the winning category, but also some people, they state that 100% it's clear for everyone in the organization. So that's where we are wanting to go, to get support from all your employees for sustainability. I'm very happy to see that no one answered there is no attention for it. So yeah, I think it gave some inspiration to get started with this in your mission and vision.
Yes, and also regarding to the stakeholder process and looking at did organizations here in this webinar map out the stakeholders? There is some work to do, and that's quite understandable in the sense that when it comes to defining your strategy and actions in a long-term vision towards sustainable development, it's crucial to map out your stakeholders and to look at the stakeholders, because as you also saw it in one of the first slides regarding to the SDGs, you have, as Sarah said it, the cherry on the cake, which is partnerships. Without partnerships, without good collaboration, without your stakeholders, it might be very difficult to change things in your organization, to change things in your industry. So it's very important to work together on this. Of course, it is not easy, and it's not from one day to another. It takes time. It's one of the slow factors as well. But nevertheless, it's important to take this in mind. So in this step, we want to focus on creating dynamics within your organization, but also outside of your organization. Try to map them and try to ask them the question, which sustainability themes are the most important for you as a stakeholder, and which SDGs are the most important for your organization. The difference between these two is what we call inside out and outside in. Inside out are topics that are very much related to your own organization. If you are a social tourism operator, there might be some totally different topics than an organization working in tourism and adventure. So these are really much the inside out topics, the topics that are related to your organization. Instead, the SDGs, we call it the outside in approach, are topics, challenges worldwide. So everyone in all kind of sectors need to deal with this. But what does it mean? What does life below water or no poverty or gender equality means for your organization? And what do the stakeholders think are the important SDGs for you? So this is also a good exercise that you can do also after this webinar to receive more insight in the process, how to become more sustainable and how can the SDGs help you with this. We have a few examples of organizations that did exercises on their vision, their mission. So step 1, creating insight, but also step 2 on creating dynamics. And Hannelore will speak about 3 examples in this way.
Yes, an example which kind of thinks out of the box, I think, in tourism, and that's why I want to mention it, is the Changemaker tour in Berlin. That actually, as you see here, is a picture of the tour with the tourists clearly being educated about the SDGs themselves. So here you see that really about this topic of the SDGs, making it very visual and very clear. They work with the stakeholders of the tourists, talking about the challenges of the city and solutions that are being brought up in the city. And also the other important stakeholders they're working with are the entrepreneurs, the social entrepreneurs, the circular economy initiatives, the sustainability solutions that are popping up in the city. So that's a nice way, I think, to work with these different stakeholders about the topic, working on one side to raise awareness and on the other side to see where they can make impact on the SDGs themselves. Next. Yes. This is a one in Belgium. It's a rural slow tourism initiative. There's a restaurant, a cafe, there's activities, there's tours. It's a very small village. And they really took the idea of stakeholder collaboration here to a next level, because they invited the whole village, which is a few thousand people, to do the brainstorm when before there was a tourism product, because it's a small rural village. There's not really any sites that people are already coming for. So before they made the tourism product there, they sat together, well, not with the thousands of people, but there's a few hundred people that came to brainstorm and see what do they want, what kind of tourists do they want, what do they want to show the outside world. Also suppliers were there. There's a lot of local suppliers and also vulnerable groups that work there, refugees, people with disabilities. And they really looked at the strengths of all the stakeholders and where everyone could have a place. And also, for example, the talents of everyone in the village. So there was a photography club that made a tour with photos. The parents of the village made activities for children. So everyone's strength really came out of it. And there was this sustainable development on a very local level of the village with everyone together. Yes. And this is also maybe a similar example in Belgium called Kasteelhoeve-Wange, which has had many awards also for being a sustainable business. Has a green key label and things like that. And it used to be this kind of this kind of castle in a village as well. And when they renovated it, they wanted to see how they could fill in this function of the castle that it had in previous times in contemporary times, looking at the most sustainable way to do things. So also here, first, before they started marketing to outside tourists, they really made a connection with the local people and with the neighbors, so everyone felt welcome there, and really look at all the suppliers, so everything is sourced locally, and they work together with nature conservation, government bodies, buying land, but then also conserving it. So there's also it's also an example of different stakeholders and really talking about SDGs, sustainable development, to get this flourishing destination that's in the first place good for the people that already live there, and then also good experience for the tourists, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannelore. As these first two steps are very important, and as mentioned in the beginning, we focus this webinar on step one, by creating insight, and also creating dynamic step two. Now, for these questions to answer are many ways possible. And that's why we would like to do an exercise also on your ambition level. Because when you talk about sustainable development and the SDGs, you can do that on several ambition levels. We define 4 ambition levels, starting with communication, where you use the priority teams or the SDGs to design and raise awareness within your organization towards your external stakeholders. So this will create insight, this will create dynamics. Second ambition level is activate. Use the priority teams that come out of your matrix or out of your stakeholder process, and define actions and strategic objectives. Third level is what we call the innovation or strategy level. Use your priority teams or the SDGs to shape your own strategy together with your stakeholders. And then the fourth ambition level is what we call transform or transformation. That's the highest level, and that's also one of the bottom lines of Agenda 2030, transforming our world. Use the priority teams or priority SDGs as a transformation tool. How can your organization transform to become future-proof? How can you change your organization to become future-proof? And which transformation do you need for that? Now, these 4 ambition levels can help you also to reorient a little bit your vision, your strategy right now, to cope also with crises like Corona, crises like what we saw in the iceberg model, terror attacks, or climate crisis. These 4 ambition levels are a way of inspiration as well. And to inspire you a little bit more, on the first level of communication, we look at good life goals, for example, or the sustainability lifestyle goals. You might have heard from them before, but these goals are really linked to the individual level. As an individual, how can I do something with these global holistic goals? What do I do with, for example, life below water? Well, maybe I can help with a campaign or help clean our seas in one way or another. Or what can I do to, let's say, in industry, innovation, and infrastructure? Well, make smart choices. What can I do to eradicate food hunger, for example? Well, eat better, etc., etc. So for every level, there is an individual goal. And it might be interesting to also have SDGs really translated to your organization in the tourism industry. Some organizations, for example, the UN World Tourism Organization, also worked on how can we translate these big goals towards the industry of tourism. So might it be helpful on this ambition level to look at how can I communicate about these SDGs towards my organization internally, but also externally. Goodlifegoals.org. Second level, the activation level, ambition level. A lot of examples are here noticeable worldwide, that also tourism organizations link their actions, their activities with the SDGs. And actually, as a first step, as we mentioned in the beginning, it's very useful to map that, to map your actions with the SDGs. What you do right now, and how can you map them? This way, you will also see gaps, SDGs that you're not mentioning right now, and why don't you do that? Of course, it's a quite simple step in the sense that if you work this out with a working group, internal working group, you might find a lot of links. So therefore, we motivate you to reach even higher and a third ambition level, to integrate it, innovate it, use it as a strategy approach. This is an example of TUI, where they focus on 7 goals, where they feel they can make a meaningful contribution. So they really looked at their priority goals, priority SDGs, and shaped their strategy around it. This might also be very helpful in next steps to really look at the integration of these SDGs in the whole organization. To, like I said it before, to use it as a critical framework, a compass where you can look at to shape your strategy or to reshape your strategy. And then a fourth ambition level is transformation, what we call transformation. And we need these projects, these transformations to really reach sustainable development and reach these SDGs. This is an example where Up Hotel Group use circular economy as a transformation. They use recycling projects. They start recycling projects within their hotel, use new solutions, new innovations on several projects. So this is really looking at also new business models, which can help you to transform and rethink a little bit your products, your services, your way, your organizations. If you are an accommodation, you're in the accommodation industry, try to rethink also how can I deal with these new business models and transform my accommodation as well. So these are actually 4 ambition levels, and we would like to ask you the question on which ambition level is your organization right now? Are you on the communication level, campaigns, inspiration, awareness? Are you more on the action level, doing actions on several themes? Are you looking at the integration level, where you integrate sustainability into the strategy and try to innovate? Or are you on the transformation level, the highest level, where you look at sustainability as a tool for innovation and transformation? Or all good, but we still need to get started? You can vote right now.
Yes, so I can already see that 55% of the people, actually 58 now, have voted. It is quite tight as well. We'll wait a bit more and then we'll close it and see the results. Let's give another 20 seconds. All right.
This is indeed a tight score. So a few people need to get started, and then you see that some are on the communication level, action level, integration level, and transformation level also a lot. Sustainability as a tool for innovation. And we're quite curious on your input as well. So that's for, we have a last exercise with our interactive tool, which Sarah is now going to share.
So if you see my screen now, you'll see the ambition level. So campaigns, action, strategy, transformation. And at the left side, you also have the 5 P's: people, planet, prosperity, peace, partnerships. Now the question is, and we saw in the poll that on every level, some organizations are on the transformation level, strategy level, action level, campaign level, but I think the transformation level was the least. So let's focus there. And the question is, which actions, it can be very ambitious, would your organization or the sector undertake to contribute to one of the P's? For example, on the planet level, you can take a post-it, write down maybe internal campaign on SDGs, for example. So we'll give you, and then you can make it smaller so everyone can put his post-it there. So we'll give you 10 minutes to brainstorm a little and focus on the transformation level and on all P's. Brainstorm for some actions, some ideas. It can be crazy ideas. Everything is good. So see you maybe in 10 minutes. So it's 5:03 or 4. Oh, and maybe if in the meantime you have questions, because we are almost at the end of this session. If you have questions, you can ask them via the chat, so we can, at the end of the session, take some of your questions.
Yes, so we have the chat, but we also have this question and answer. So both work, obviously. Maybe the question and answer is easier for us, but if you can't find it and you just want to write in the chat, that's fine as well. So we'll let you work on this new exercise for 10 minutes.
All right, we'll get started again. I see some people are still adding some things. We also looked at some examples. And as you can see, main message here is you have several ambition levels, and it's good to orient your actions, your ideas on these several ambition levels. For example, some actions, goals can be on transformation level and others on campaign or communication level. Also, something that is noticeable that most post-its are on the planet level, which is quite normal in the sense that when it comes to sustainable development, it's easier to link that towards ecological or planet types of initiatives, actions, transformations. It's more difficult to look at people or peace topics. So this is also something to keep in mind, to also look at these dimensions of the 5 Ps. As Agenda 2030 also says, the SDGs are integrated, indivisible, universal. So it's a holistic frame. So keep that in mind as well if you look at these ambition levels, to look at the 5 dimensions of sustainable development in the SDGs. Of course, you can do this exercise again if you have more time in a working group within your organization. Also, bear in mind, maybe you can do this together with stakeholders, which also might create new insights to go further. As a last part, I will share my screen again. And as a wrap up as well. Yes, the storm will pass. Humankind will survive. Most of us will still be alive, but we will inhabit a different world. You probably know or heard about Harari, which an author and academic thinker, wrote a lot of good books as well. One of his famous books is Sapiens. So I think he's right here. The storm will pass, this crisis, but we will inhabit a different world. We need to change, and this crisis is also a good trigger or an opportunity to change a little bit. And what might help is look at different frames which are close to your organization, but also outside your organization. For example, these SDGs. To look at them and to use them as well. Because one step, of course, is to get to know them, the SDGs. And I was glad to see in one of the polls that most of you already know the SDGs and are trying to work with it. But these steps, creating insight, creating dynamics, to look at ambition levels, are important next steps to really work with the SDGs and to challenge yourself, create opportunities, and be ready to inhabit in a different world, different products, different customers, different society. Now, the main message that we wanted to give also to you is build back better after COVID-19. So let's go for scenario 2. Let's look at the SDGs as moral appeal to get even stronger out of this crisis, to look at new opportunities, apply systems thinking, to broaden your mindsets, create insight in sustainability topics and the SDGs. So look at the iceberg model, try to think also on the underlying patterns, also for future events that might occur in 2025, 2030, etc. How can you become future-proof? This will help you to define the why, sharpen your mission, sharpen your vision. Try to work out an SDG mapping, which is a first important step. And then afterwards, define actions you will take to realize the why. Work on a sustainability culture. Interact with your stakeholders, internal, external, on sustainability topics. Create your materiality matrix. What we meant was, what are the priorities? Of course, you cannot focus on all these 17 SDGs and these 169 targets, but try to focus and see where you have the biggest impact right now. Where do you see opportunities in the future? And then last but not least, keep the different ambition levels in mind. This will help you to reorient your strategic choices. You can have actions on several levels, several ambition levels, but also keep in mind this holistic approach of sustainable development, which the SDGs also define. It's about the people, it's about the planet, prosperity, peace, and the partnership. This will help you also to innovate, to create sustainability culture, and to aim for that transformation, which is very much needed, especially in these times. So one of the next steps, what you can do, put your strategy, map it on these, this frame of the 5 Ps. Look at how can I make sure that I have secure resilience, satisfying resilience, shared resilience, smart resilience, and sustainable resilience. Define your ambition level, define your goals, and maybe reorient your scope with crises like COVID-19 in the back of your mind. That's all from our side. I see we have some questions and we're open for many more. As we said in the beginning, we focus this webinar on the first 2 steps, insight, creating dynamics. Next step is making course, making your story, and creating impact, and also measuring your impact. With the ambition levels, we did the first step of also defining your course, which is important. Marin will also update you from ISTO side on a next webinar where we'll go more into depth in this one. And for now, I would say we're happy to answer some of the questions. One question, if we're able to share the materials, we'll definitely do that. So we will coordinate this together with Via and ISTO. So ISTO will also sharing, I think, the whole webinar, if that is correct, as this is recorded.
Yes, so I've been recording this webinar. It will be published on ISTO's website, and obviously we will receive the PowerPoint from Route 2030, and then we can share it with the people who would want it.
Yep. Okay, perfect. I see there's a question. Do you provide didactic material about SDGs? We want to do workshop with children here in Mexico. Specifically for children, we worked on a project with educational institutions in Belgium to also apply systems thinking in school. So already from a younger age, how can children and young people look at systems thinking and connecting the dots when it comes to sustainable development? Related to your question, I would say it's very useful to look at several websites. You might heard from this before, but I'm sharing now my screen, which here you see the world's largest lesson. It's in partnership with UNICEF and UNESCO, which is a very useful website when it comes to sustainable development goals and introducing them to children, young people everywhere and unite them. You can scroll down, there are a lot of movies, board games. On every goal you find lesson plans, there are a lot of resources for teaching. So you might be helped with this. Another one is on the website of UNESCO. You have, when you click further on education, SDGs and material, and you click, for example, on no poverty, you'll find a lot of educational material. So here you see access to learning objectives for SDG 1, for example, multimedia resources, with nice examples all over the world. So this is all material you can use, also related to the SDGs and children. So I hope this this helps. I see also a question, when is the next one? We might look at this together with ISTO, depending also on the developments of Corona, of course. But I think we scheduled it from September onwards, but correct me if I'm wrong, Marine.
No, this is correct. As I said, this is, I think I've said it in other webinars, and I think Jan has said it actually today. This webinar, this workshop on the SDGs was the first one of a series that ISTO will offer to ISTO members in order to accompany them towards the goals, to reach the goals by 2030 or even before, I hope. So this webinar was accessible to everyone, but the next ones, because we'll go a bit deeper, will be only for ISTO members. So if you do want to join ISTO and become a member, all the information is on the website, and I'm actually going to write it in the chat as well.
Okay. Another question was raised, do you think the institutions of education are really teaching as of the needs of the SDGs? It's a good question, and as we said also, the SDGs, it's a framework of sustainable development. It's not a new framework as such in the sense that all of these topics related to the SDGs and sustainable development are now all combined for the first time in one holistic framework. It started in 2015, so now 2020, 5 years later, we see that a lot of organizations worldwide get to know the SDGs, and this is a first important step to create impact. The United Nations launched also this year as a year or a decade, let's say next 10 years, decade of action. So also due to Corona, these organizations, these UN organizations also say it's even more important to get to the action. So we're trying to get from the communication insight level towards the action level. So we need these actions. And we see also that educational organizations, institutions from university level, but also school level, lower school level, kindergartens even, try to use these new materials and looking at new ways of teaching. Like I said, we're involved in a project with schools in Belgium, trying to implement systems thinking in teaching. I know that, for example, Via Tourism Academy is also very much aware of this and is also teaching about the SDGs in schools. Maybe Hannelore, you can give or provide a little bit more information on that.
Yes, sure. We work mostly together with the tourism education, of course, in Flanders, where we coordinate with our organization, the I have to translate it, the Network for Sustainable and Innovative Tourism, for teachers and lecturers in we have one university course, a master's in tourism in Flanders, and then there's university colleges and high schools. So we get together these teachers and lecturers at least one time a year together for a bigger event or for a few smaller events. And really this topic of this event the past few years was really always within the framework of the SDGs. So we talked about the future of travel, we talked about the responsibility that we should take as a travel sector. And we do see that still, well, now the students know the framework of the SDGs, but still like the sustainability, systems thinking, innovation, resilience, these topics are still quite new. and also for the sector, we're really one of the few ones that are putting it on the agenda. So it seems that there's still some work there, and it's still not covered completely by the educational system or the sector.
I see in this regard, Angelica says you're partnered with Kai Leuven, is that correct?
Yes, I don't know Angelica, but yes, I'm also, we're, as Via Via, we're a partner of, it's an international master's, it's sustainable territorial development. So it's a multidisciplinary master's education of 2 years, and we're a partner there talking about sustainable tourism, mostly together with KU Leuven, where there is a focus also on tourism. So yes, that's also great, Angelica, that you were there. So yes, I'm also involved with that.
Maybe also a question, and I don't know if you have a view on this, Hannelore or Marine, if there is any experience with indigenous people that might be have a success already in the past.
And in which sense do you mean experience with?
Maybe the question came from Mar. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what you mean with experience as such. Experience related to sustainable development, the SDGs, or more about specific topics? Experience about the development goals.
Yes, I think that actually Anila and ISTO, we know about this experience in Nepal, the Sasan sisterhood tracking. So this is not really with SDGs, but they're working a lot on gender equality. And so, as you know, gender equality is one of the SDGs. And I think that Anila knows more about it than I do. So maybe you want to say something about it, Anila?
Yes, so it depends a bit what the question is exactly, if it's about raising awareness on the SDGs or if it's like working on a specific topic. The case that you're suggesting, Marine, is indeed a social enterprise in Nepal, working with women that are released from human trafficking and that then are educated as tour guides to have community tourism experiences. So I think there are many examples like that. Well, lately I've been focusing a lot on gender equality, so I could talk a lot about that, but we'll do that on Thursday in another webinar at least. But there's a lot of things that have happened, experiences that have happened with indigenous communities on specific topics. But I'm not sure about like awareness raising programs. I don't have any examples of that come to mind.
I hope this helps a little bit, Mar, and maybe if you have other questions, you might also send it to us and we can see if you found more information. Also on this, where do we find examples with indigenous communities and gender equality? Maybe on the webinar on Thursday, this might be further elaborated with.
Yeah, on Thursday morning at 10, we'll do another webinar on this specific topic. So we'll have a few examples of developing countries and of indigenous communities working with gender equality. There's also some good publications on that from UNWTO on women in tourism, for example. And there's also a publication, I'm not sure where it was from, but you can Google it. It's about indigenous communities and sustainable development. There's a good publication about that.
Actually, ISTO has published a booklet a few months ago. It's a booklet with 20 good practices of fair and solidarity tourism. And actually, for each example, you have the SDGs that that I worked on, basically. So that booklet is available on ISTO's website. I will write the link on the chat in a few minutes.
Another example, Angelica, to respond to your question, is one that we mentioned in one of the slides. You probably heard from this, but this is growing from the United Nations World Tourism Organization, Tourism for SDGs, where you see a lot of initiatives worldwide linked to one or more SDGs. So this might also inspire you. They're also looking at, on one hand, SDGs and partnership. On the other hand, also dealing with tourism and Corona crisis linked with the SDGs. So this might also help to find some inspirational examples.
Maybe if I could just add a little bit to that, when I look in very close by with my own organization, we have a network of social enterprises around the world called Via Via Cafes, where we also, the idea is that it's kind of it's one mission and vision. So our why is the same for the whole network in all the continents, but then it's always really implemented in the local territory, in the local challenges, and with the local focus that is needed. So this is also working with local communities. There's about 300 people employed around the world, where we really work on the SDGs. So that could be also an example of how you can have this global framework and this one vision and mission, and then have the, you do the different exercises, and you have the specific implementation in the field. So I think that's a combination that for us it's been working well for over 25 years.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, you can also maybe contact us later, or keep ISTO, keep track of ISTO through the website. Other next webinars, of course, definitely in this week. There are many other opportunities. So maybe Marine, if you have some last words to share.
Yes, so what I wanted to say is obviously about SDGs. This was our last webinar for the week, but as I've said, we will have another SDG webinar in September for ISTO members, and then later on during the year and next year as well for ISTO members only. But we still have our e-week of Fair and Sustainable Tourism for all. So this is what we're doing right now, and this is free, this is accessible to everyone. And so we've had already 2 webinars today, but we have 2 more coming. So actually we have one in Spanish. It starts in 1 hour, and it's about collaboration in the Americas on education, training, and networking. And then we have another one in 3 hours about the experience of teaching social tourism in a classroom. It is still possible to register for those 2. The 2 are in Spanish. The last one is almost full, so if you're interested, don't wait too long. And all the information for the other webinars is on ISTO's website. So thank you for your attention. I don't know if there is another question. I don't think so. We just have a few comments saying very interesting, that the webinar was very interesting. That the presentation was great. Well, thanks a lot to the people who were there participating, answering the polls, creating some amazing post-it sticky notes boards. Thank you to Jan, Sarah, and Anne-Laure, because it was really interesting. We've had another SDG workshop in Paris last October for ISTO members in real life, not a webinar. And it was already a very nice start, but this went a bit further, and I'm really happy that ISTO members could follow both and still be interested. We have another question. Could you share the link to the other two live? Yes, I will. When you say the other two live, I guess it's the webinars of today. Yes, I'm guessing. I'll share the link now. Yes, okay.
Okay, also from our side, I think I can speak from Via and Route 2030. Thanks a lot, ISTO, for this opportunity to share our view on Corona, SDGs, and the way forward. So our message is build back better and keep the things that you're doing, keep it on track and try to focus and stay on those transformation thoughts. So we'll share the presentation definitely afterwards, and keep safe, keep healthy, and see you also next time.
Yes, I am just writing the links for later today. That's it. Well, I think everybody has the information now, but really all the information, all the registrations for the other webinars are on ISTO's website. So just visit the website, you will find everything. It's pretty intuitive, I think. I think everybody's happy. So let's end it there. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.